Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Scacho in a 5-minute pool on ICC. I'm opening with knight f3. I've been in a knight f3 mood recently. Let's see what Mr. Scacho has in store for us. Maybe we'll transpose to a Catalan. Yeah, let's play d4 and then follow with c4 hereafter. And usually they take on c4. It is possible to play a closed Catalan where they don't do that. Okay, now queen c2, and after a6, the move that's been all the rage in recent years is a4. So I'm going to do that. It seems to me like queen takes c4 has been somewhat neutralized. So yeah, we're going to play this way instead. Take, and if bishop takes, I think knight e5 is the move. Does that seem right? I think this is the way to play. For some reason, you don't want to take on c4 right away. It might be better to get the knight out. So I'm going to play according to theory. Queen e7 played right away. So let's... I'm on my own now. Okay, let's play knight c3 first. Again, I'm not going to take on c4 quite yet, because I want to stop knight c6. And if I were to take right away, there's no reason black can't play knight c6. So maybe I can postpone this capture for a little bit. Scacho is from Spain from the look of it. They're an anonymous IM. Peak 5-minute rating of 2472. Plays knight bd7. Okay, so now let's just recover the pawn. And try to make it hard for black to complete their development. It's important, for instance, that the bishop can't easily get into the action. Maybe rook b8, but rook b8 would allow bishop f4 with tempo. So I think black does have a few minor issues to address. Okay, now bishop f4. How about that? a5 is also interesting, trying to clamp down on the b6 square, but I think bishop f4 is more direct. If e5 is played, I'll play bishop e3 and gloat that I have the d5 square and possibly the f5 square in my possession. And he does play e5, because I think this could constitute a weakness. Especially if black takes and I'm able to take with this knight, and then I have a lot of pieces pointed at d5, and also the knight's ready to spring to f5 if I like. Black cannot play knight b6. I would just play knight takes b6, and my knight would be protected by the dark square bishop. So it's not a simple task for them to unwind. And alert the presses, I'm ahead on the clock by 30 seconds. Can you believe it? All right, so a5. I'm just going to play rook ad1 against that, or maybe rook fd1 is better. Let's go with rook ad1. It's one of those classic dilemmas, which rook to use. I'm choosing this rook just because I think maybe I want the f-pawn protected in some circumstances. So, all right, rook a6, so that was his plan all along. It's creative. Okay, let's go knight b5. Since black has played a6, b5 is a juicy outpost. Maybe I can think about taking on c5, although black would likely take with a queen. Maybe they would take with a knight, but I want to get knight d6 in if I can. Pawn b6 doesn't look correct because they're not even threatening bishop b7. So I think even here, black is experiencing some issues regarding their development. Maybe they could play knight b8, looking to put the knight on c6. Looks weird, but could be best. He takes. Okay, I like to see that. Queen b4. Knight d6 kind of embarrasses this bishop, doesn't it, though? Knight d6, he can't put a rook on c6 thanks to my bishop. But he could play knight c5 or queen c5. Maybe knight f5 instead? Not really a threat associated with knight f5. So knight d6 or knight f5, which one? Let's go knight f5. I don't see a threat with this move, but it looks awkward for black. At least I'm hoping it is. Knight c5. Okay, so I could check and then take on c8. And then I can take on b7 at the end of that line. Yeah, and he cannot recapture.
Check.
That's quite important. So let's pre-move this baby. And yeah, here we have this move. Forking the two rooks. And if knight takes b7, queen takes c8. Little tactical detail. And that will win us the exchange. Yeah, he just resigned. Either an outright exchange or exchange plus pawn. Okay. Well, let's go back and have a look at this one. So I opened with knight f3, and knight f3 is flexible. That's one of the main benefits of this move. And if you play d4 on move 1, it is worth experimenting with knight f3 on move 1 because you can avoid certain lines. I mentioned this before, but knight f3 can be a good weapon against the Nimzo-Indian, the Grunfeld, lines like that, where if you play d4, you can't truly avoid. But against knight f3, if black tries to force one of those openings, they can't really do it properly because you're not putting your pawn on d4. In this case, though, we eventually transposed into a Catalan, which happened right here upon move 6, c4. Black took, and now queen c2, a6. Yeah, so I played the move that is popular these days, which is a4, and I think that's been the case for the past couple years. Queen takes c4, b5, queen c2, bishop b7 is holding up well for black theoretically. I think after bishop d2, one line that has been working pretty well for black is bishop e4. And then after queen c1, black can retreat to b7, or they can even play c6. I think c6 is a line that's been scoring okay for him. So instead I played a4, just stopping b5. Black goes c5, take, bishop takes. So let me add the engine right here, because I've seen this line before. I just don't really know exactly how to play it. Something about knight e5 seemed correct, so I played that move. And if you take right away, yeah, it's possible that the queen is just exposed on this square and might be subject to attack. Whereas playing knight e5 gives you the option of taking with the knight and keeping the queen back. And not only that, you also open up the bishop. So the bishop is bearing down on black's queen side. So he played queen e7. I played knight c3. I thought about knight d2 as well, but it's a blitz game. Got to make a decision. So I played knight c3, knight bd7, and now I took. And it just seemed like from here, black never truly solved their development problems comfortably. Because they need a couple tempos to get organized, and this bishop is the bane of black's existence right now. It's hard to activate. The engine is liking rook a7. That's one way to get out of the pin. But even still, how is black going to complete their development? Something like b6, bishop to b7, maybe? That looks awkward, though. So black played h6. I'm not sure h6 has much value. I played bishop f4. The engine likes a5. Yeah, clamping the queen side. One benefit of a5 is that white can follow with knight a4, attack the bishop, and also look to use the b6 square in the future. So I can see why a5 is helpful for white. Yeah, and that's a big advantage for white with equal material and black not having blundered anything over +1 according to the computer. That points to how difficult it is for black to organize. So here, and I got black to play e5 and now put the bishop on e3. The point is that I think it's harmful for black to have played e5. I think it's better for them if the pawn stands on e6, because in inducing e5, I feel like these squares will be of more help to white than this position would be if I had just played bishop e3 right away. I also don't think it's likely that this bishop will get to develop itself along this diagonal. So I'm okay with opening that diagonal if it means I have squares to work with, especially for my knights, d5 and f5. That said, I mean, black probably can unwind here if they're careful. I like this move that the computer's suggesting. Queen e6, that looks sensible. Attacking the knight on c4. For the moment, my knight doesn't have a lot of good squares to go to, and I might have to play b3 to defend. And then rook b8. Yeah, still an uphill battle, but with precise play, black may come out of this unscathed. But the issue is that the margin for error for black is pretty small here. I've been on the receiving end of positions like this against strong players like grandmasters, and if they get a coordinated position and you're like 1 or 2 tempos away from completing your development, one mistake from you can be the end of the game. They'll jump on you that quick. And that was the mentality I wanted to have here as white. So I was looking to punish a faulty move if possible. So here I just brought a rook to d1. It didn't connect with me that a5 was designed to play rook a6. Maybe it was in the back of my head, but I think he just thought that there wasn't any other good way to get out of this pin, and maybe the rook would be useful along the 6th rank. So here I played rook a d1. I kind of think if I'm going to put a rook on d1, rook f d1 might be more accurate. I was mildly concerned about something like this and maybe an attack on f2, but that's kind of silly, I think. Yeah, I have great counter-arguments to knight g4. It may not make that much of a difference. So, at any rate, I played rook a d1. He played rook a6, and then I jumped into b5. The engine likes knight b5, knight d5 as well. I prefer not to exchange pieces, though, if I can. So that's why I like knight b5, just making use of the outpost square. Maybe knight c7 could be played in the future. I'm also pointing at d6. So black took, and I took with the knight. Huh. The engine likes pawn takes better. F takes e3, such an ugly move. Voluntarily accepting double isolated e-pawns, but it must think that the knight is useful on c4, and maybe the f-file is a gain for white. I still don't like that move. Even though the engine likes it, I don't think I would play that. I think I would prefer my move, knight takes e3. Yeah, now queen b4. Knight c5 should be played. Trying to develop the bishop. Still an edge for white. Yeah, but after knight c5, like, here's an example why I think I chose the wrong rook, because had this rook still remained on a1, rook a c1 would be a natural and good move here, I think. And I have my rooks on the c and d files. Now this rook on f1 looks unemployed. Instead he played queen b4, and I just played knight f5. So knight c7 is better. Why is knight c7 so highly rated by the computer? I guess one reason is if knight c7, black cannot play knight b6 because of knight d5. Is that true? Knight takes knight, knight takes knight, queen takes b2. Then I can check king h8, trade the queens, and then knight takes c8, and rook takes d7 at the end. So I'm looking at a line like this, and now I think that this is going to win material. Take, take. We're forking the queen and the rook. If queen takes b2, give a check. King over, trade the queens, and then take here, and this knight is hanging at the end. Rook takes c8, rook takes d7. So knight c7, for that reason, creates some tactical issues for black. They can't play rook a8. They can't play rook c6, because my bishop covers. If rook d6, knight ed5 is again good, or I guess this knight first. Take, take, yep, and knight e7 check could be a tactical problem. Black must give the exchange. Yeah, this time if, like, queen c5, we can swap the queens, give a check, and then pick up the rook. So on knight c7, what would be black's best try? Rook a7, not a great square for the rook. And now knight c4, no tactics, but white is clearly better. Yeah, by over a pawn. Okay, yeah, knight c7, good move as well. Knight f5 looked like a nice attacking move too. We're not strictly threatening knight e7 because black's queen defends, but we are eyeing the d6 square, and this knight is poised to go to e7. Yeah, and this move's a blunder in a tough position. So black should play knight b8. I think I commented on knight b8. Maybe not on this move, but one of the prior moves. I thought maybe they might want to reroute the knight to c6 and then open the bishop up as well. So I can play this move and still enjoy an advantage, but yeah, black's fighting. Yeah, instead, this is all forced. Take the bishop on c8, and as soon as they take, fork the rooks. Yeah, and he resigned. Maybe not premature, because this is quite a bit of material. And again, this works because knight takes b7 runs into queen takes c8. Okay, so in some ways this is a textbook Catalan game, because this is what white hopes for when playing this line. It's not like you're looking to blow your opponent off the board with this opening. You're trying to exert positional pressure. And often in the Catalan, there's positions like what you see, let's say right around here, where optically black looks fine. But they have issues with their coordination, and black is a couple tempos away from getting in the game. And white can play off of that and try to create mini problems for black that can eventually snowball into a big advantage for white, ideally. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I'll be back again soon with another video. Talk to you guys later. Bye.